This is the Fantasy Football Unlimited podcast with your host, Kevin Murray.
Welcome to the Fantasy Football Unlimited podcast. On this episode, we have a phenomenal guest, somebody that you have to get to know. He's a contributor at Sharp Football Analysis and Yahoo Fantasy Sports. From the Justin Henry Show on YouTube, it's Justin Henry himself. Welcome in, my friend.
My man, appreciate you having me on, and it'll be good chatting it up with you, my man.
Can't wait. Looking forward to it. Now, you're in Sacramento, right? Are you originally a California guy?
Born and raised California. Sacramento's where I was born. I moved to Salinas, which is in like Southern California for a little bit on the outskirts of like LA, and then moved back to Sacramento. So I've been up here my whole life pretty much, man. So I got to get out and see the world a little bit more.
Well, I mean, Sacramento's got its perks. I mean, I know summertime's a little hot, but if that's what you're used to, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the weather. I can't complain too much. Like during the winter, we get a lot of like rain and stuff, but I'm not like shoveling snow in the front yard during the winter time. And in the summer, it's not Arizona, so I can't cry too much.
That's true. California definitely has its perks, especially northern California. Not bad at all. So, were you a big sports fan growing up? I would imagine you were.
Yeah, even as a kid, man. So like it's weird because like my dad was athletic, right? Like he played baseball like with Kevin Johnson. Kevin Johnson used to play for the Phoenix Suns. So
yeah,
he played baseball, growing up football. He was fast, like ran like a 4.40. I didn't inherit like all the same athletic genes, but I got the height, right? So over the course of my life, like I was a big basketball fan when I was a kid. And especially like in the Jordan era, like that's when I really fell in love with the game. Even before that, like with Magic, even back then, like I collected sports cards. I was the kid that memorized all the stats on the back of the sports card. And so anytime I got into a debate, even when I was like 9, 10, 11 years old, I would go back and forth like, no, I know more about sports than you do, old man. Like that's how I was even as a kid. So I love sports, played basketball, baseball. I wasn't very good at baseball. Played basketball mostly growing up all the way through high school. So yeah, I was a hooper.
I love it. So I imagine like Chris Webber, that whole group was big to you.
I'm a Lakers fan in Sacramento, believe it or not. I'm a Lakers fan. Okay. So that whole era was a crazy era for me. The Lakers and Sacramento, those wars that they had. But actually, side note, I met Chris Webber. He's a dope person, bro. Dope person in person. Got to shake his hand, and like I'm 6'4", I got pretty big hands. His hands were like dwarfing my hands. It was crazy.
Yeah, what an incredible athlete he was for sure. No, that's cool. I love it. So who are your most favorite players growing up? Obviously, you said Jordan.
Yeah, so like Jordan, obviously, because everybody wanted to be Jordan in the 90s. Like that was who you wanted to be. But I really like Shaq. Like Shaq, when I was younger, just kind of seeing an imposing figure like that, especially when he was on the Magic. Him and Penny Hardaway were really cool to watch. But as I got a little bit older and started like kind of finding myself, I wasn't this big scorer, but what I was I was a student of the game. So my basketball IQ was very high on the court, and I was tall and long, so I kind of liked longer wing defenders, and that's what I wanted to be. So like Scottie Pippen was one of my favorite players. Eddie Jones was another player that I liked growing up, but I liked a lot of like the wing defenders in the league. That's kind of where I leaned to, like the underrated players. I always thought there was some value in finding those guys.
I love it. Now I'm a Seattle guy, so I love Gary Payton, Sean Kemp, and everything. But yeah, Jordan. I mean, Jordan was everything to me growing up. So I can relate to a lot of that stuff. How about on the football side? Who's your squad and who are your favorite players?
Yeah, so I'm a Niner fan, and like I said, my parents weren't really into like sports growing up, and so I kind of had to find my team. And the Niners were a team, and like when I was in elementary school, they were the team that was winning, and it's like that's the team that I held on to. And then so as I grew up, then I'm watching all these Niner games, and T.O. ended up like I love Jerry, and I love watching like Steve Young and Ricky Waters. All those are my guys, but like T.O. was that player. I was like, okay, I know what's going on now. I understand these routes. I understand how he's cooking people on the field. Like T.O. was a dog to me. So T.O. was probably my favorite player of all time. Like I love watching T.O. play, love the passion he played with. I even was a fan, like even when I hate the Dallas Cowboys, but even when he went to the Cowboys, I was enjoying watching him there and in Philly too. So T.O., man, my favorite player. It's something about T.O. that was like, he was a bigger than life personality, and people didn't appreciate what we were watching because of all the other stuff that was going on with him in the media and how he treated treated his teammates right. Like I think we kind of devalued what T.O. was as a player on the field. So he's one of my favorites.
Yeah, no, he was larger than life personality, like you said, and I can see, those personalities. It makes a big difference when it comes to when you're a fan and whatnot. I mean, a guy like that. I mean, he talked his talk and he walked his walk for
Yeah.
sure. So when did you first discover fantasy sports?
So fantasy sports for me, like obviously, like I talked about, like knowing the stats. My mom used to buy me like sports almanacs, like sports. So I was a nerd, man. Like I would go through and read them things. Like I knew all the numbers back then. And then in high school, one of my friends, so this is in 1999. One of my friends, I'm in this chemistry class. The chemistry class has those computers in the back. Like one day we're sitting there messing around and he's like, "Oh, do you play fantasy sports?" I'm like, "No, what's that?" So he introduced me to fantasy sports. We started playing fantasy basketball. And then I started talking about it more with my friends. And I had this one friend who was into like fantasy everything, fantasy baseball, fantasy hockey. He's just like, "You got to keep playing. You got to play." So I took my love for basketball and then I started playing fantasy baseball, found out how to get good at that. Then fantasy football came around and I was like, okay, this is a different beast because it's not like basketball and baseball where things are a little bit more predictable. There's a lot more uncertainties when it comes to fantasy football, but I think it kind of raises like how fun it can be. You know what I mean? Like there's an element of like, oh, this is kind of fun. So fantasy sports in general, about 19, so over 20 years, well over 20 years ago at this point.
Man, it's time flies. I remember, I remember those early days playing fantasy as well. And again, I think going back to like cards and whatnot and stats. I feel like that really kind of for me was a big foundation in defining fantasy and loving getting the concept of fantasy. So
It
I
really
could
is.
certainly,
I think people forget fantasy is a game, and you think it's like, oh, they think that you can predict with analytics, or then there's the people that know ball better or they play it. And it's like, you can predict everything because of on the field. And it's actually a really nice blend of some of both. And I think in order to understand that, like you have to go through some winning seasons, you have to go through some losing seasons and really kind of find your blend. But I think a lot of people when it comes to fantasy don't always realize like we're playing a game here, and there's only one winner.
Yeah, that's true. Now, do you remember some of like the early content that you consumed in fantasy, like who you were following back in the day?
Kind of, man. You asking me to go back in the catalog right now, bro. But I think, just reading some of those articles, the Yahoo articles always came in handy. Like, so Brandon Funston was a guy that used to write articles. Rick Kamla, I remember reading some of his stuff for fantasy basketball. Obviously, Matthew Berry was one of those names early on. Andy Behrens, I think more in like the mid 2000s was up there. So these were guys that like, some of them I listened to, and I ain't gonna say who is who. But some of them I listened to everything they had to say. Some of them I was like, I ain't gonna listen to that right now. But at least consuming content and even knowing how to talk about this now, you know what I mean? Even if I didn't agree with everything at the time, knowing how to talk about it, discuss player values, that's something that I think I'm not giving enough credit to even today. Reading those articles and watching those videos, it does help in being able to share information with others because they set the platform for that.
That's a great point. That's a great point. So when it comes to just playing fantasy, whether it's baseball, basketball, football, what's your favorite part of the game?
For fantasy basketball, I would just say in fantasy in general, it's the competitiveness of it, right? Because especially when you can find a league that is competitive. I think talking about some of those earlier days, it was easy to go through and find leagues where I knew I could win. You know what I mean? Like, more information. At that time, information wasn't like as readily available as it is today. If somebody was out at that time, you might have been the only person that knew there was going to be a change in situation when it came to the running backs, or you might have been the only person that knew Justin Herbert was dealing with a fractured finger for a day or two. But it's like now the information is so much more available. Leagues have become tighter. And at that time, I was playing in some leagues that, I felt like I was just dominant. Like I just knew how to find information. I knew the information a little bit better. So I think over the course of like the 2000s, especially when the internet kind of rose in popularity, social media started rising in popularity. One of the things I started doing was like, hey, I got to find a circle of people that understand this, kind of train them up to speed and get this league competitive, because I feel like that's the way you grow as a player, as a fantasy player. You got to grow. You got to play in competitive leagues so you can kind of start to see what other people do. You learn tendencies, when people panic, when they don't. I think that going through that competitive cycle, it makes you a better player. And that's what I value the most. Like people, winning. You want to win at the end of the day. And not everybody knows how to do that, I would say. And I think playing in competitive leagues lets you get to that level.
I love it. Now, do you have a primary home league, like in football or basketball, that you have that's been going for a long time?
Yeah, I had one that I was part of for like 10, 15 years. We would draft, and that was that group of guys that I talked about. And it got to a point where that league, it was a fun league, but it got to a point where like there was too much like people knew each other. And so there was like, I'm not letting this person win, or I'm not doing this. And those leagues started becoming a little bit more political in
Sure.
essence than I wanted it. So I kind of scratched the surface on that, and most of my leagues are more recent within the last like 3 to 5 years. But I got some guys that I've been playing with and rocking with that we're all competitive in nature. We all want to win. And I got my guy Dan, my guy Isaiah, my guy P. We've been playing in these leagues for a long time, and they're fun leagues, man. It gets to a point where like we know who's going to be at the top, and it's just a matter of who pulls it off in the fantasy playoffs.
Nice. Now, have you had any like big, like memorable live drafts in the past?
All of our live drafts are fun because what we do auction drafts, and
Oh,
so I
nice.
feel like the standard league drafts are fun, but there's a different level when it comes to like the auction drafts, because you get in those bidding wars and you get into personal battles as well, or people like, especially when you're in a league where people know you or maybe they've watched your content, it's like they know who you like, and so people will kind of mess around with the auctions. I think that's the best way to draft is the auction format, salary cap, whatever we call it.
Nice, nice. Now, do you have a like whether it's industry or like a home league, like a rival, like one person that it just tastes so sweet when you beat him, or it hurts the most when you lose to him?
My buddy P, and Prabhat is his name. He goes by PMP Fantasy, and this is a guy. I think he relies on. It's funny because like he calls me, and if he watches this ever, he's gonna laugh. He always calls me for information. Like, hey Jay, what do you think about this trade? I'm his information guy. But then also in the fantasy playoffs, this is the guy that I probably, if I would say I've lost to anybody the most out of any leagues, it's him. And I don't loot like I may sound a little like cocky, or it may sound whatever. I'm pretty good at like fantasy. Like I understand how to play the game. And so I don't lose a whole, like it's tough for me to lose a league. And Prabhat is probably one of the people that I found that like gives me the most competition, the bang for my buck in the fantasy playoffs. So shout out to my boy P, man. I'm gonna get you this year.
I love it. Do you have when it comes to fantasy football? Do you have preferred settings and formats?
Yes. And this is actually, I was going to talk about this a little in the offseason, but I'm going to drop it here. I think this is something that people got to take a look at, and there's a lot of people that play fantasy football and believe that there's, not as much skill involved, especially around this time of year. Like I had this good team and injuries happened, or, there's a lot of luck involved. And I think the perfect settings that I've found is 12 team PPR, and you got to have at least one flex with 3 wide receivers. And the reason I say that is because when you look at the starting landscape of professional teams, if you only go single quarterback, and I forgot to mention super flex as well. When you go through the teams, like the waivers become so deep that it does feel a little bit lucky at times, right? There's too much talent on the waiver pool if you're in a shallow league, or if you're in a 16-team league. Sometimes there's not even enough starters to fill out your rosters, especially when injuries happen. So, or if an injury does happen, there's no like comparable replacement that you can even have a chance of bringing onto your roster. And I really think that's where 12-team PPR Superflex kind of meets the sweet spot. There's 12 teams. You think there's 32 teams overall in the league. That gives you an average of about 24 starters. Plus, if you want to have bench, your bench options, you're running about 36. So there's about the right number there. And I also think if you want to eliminate one of the two for luck factor, it either has to be no kickers or no defense. I think because the kickers are kind of random, defenses, you really are hoping on a touchdown. So I think eliminating a little bit of that luck factor will make it more skill-based, but leaving an element of the luck factor in there is what makes it fantasy football at the end of the day, and what makes it fun.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. It's true. It's I've had these conversations with people in the past where I personally I hate the luck, right? I want to figure out ways
Yeah.
to make sure. Like for example, I just finished 6th in my home league, but I put in the clause where the person outside the top 5 with the most points gets that 6th seed. So I got bounced in my own league, right?
Oh my gosh.
So it kills me. But at the same time, I want to do something to kind of, I guess what it drives me crazy is when you look at the standings and you look at points against, and if that like is more accurate when it comes to dictating or determining the standings than actual points for, you got to do something to mitigate luck. But at the same time, you don't want to alter the game so much that you don't you take away, some of that luck, because that is truly the foundation of fantasy, the crazy things that happen, right?
It is. And, I've actually caught a lot of flack for this take, believe it or not, Kevin. I've caught a lot of flack for this take, but I actually don't think that points for is truly symbolic of like how good a team is, right? You could have a team that was really healthy at the beginning of the year, scoring a lot of points, or maybe you had 3 or 4 really big blow up weeks, right? Say you had Devin Achane on your team and Kyron Williams early on, and then you got in later into the year and your team isn't as strong, or maybe some of those players fizzled out, or maybe there was a person in your league who took on Jonathan Taylor when he was on IR. They took on Alvin Kamara when they knew he was missing 3 games. Or maybe they had an injury to one of their bigger name players and they somehow found a way to get to the fantasy playoffs. I always think that the points for is a way of showing that you have a strong team, but it's not the actual indicator. I think wins. If you win, you'll win your week. That's all that matters. You got to play the opponent that you're against. So I get the setting, Kevin. I get it. You should have been in 6th place. That should have been your playoff spot.
I'm going to be saying that to myself. I'll be replaying this, all year. Like, oh man, what did I do? No, you're right. It's true. I get it. That's a great point. Something I don't always think of too. So I love that you said that. It hurts even more that you said that. But
well, because you think about it, you could have more points than somebody, right? Yeah. Like say you had a healthy player over the course of the year, but say you found a way to mitigate the losses of having a player out. Well, you had Justin Jefferson and you found a way to get straight to 8 wins and beat the teams that you're playing against, and you found a way to get in the playoffs. That should be your spot.
That's a good way to think of it. So obviously, we'll change gears into content creation. Obviously, you've dived into this. What inspired you to get involved in creating content, and when did it all begin for you?
So I have a marketing background, and that's really what piloted a lot of this. I went to school for marketing. I started a marketing company in 2018. So putting out content is not new to me, right? I understand the video side. I do it for clients. I've done it for myself in the past. But as far as fantasy content, I never really had a thought. Like I've thought about this in the past, but never really had the inclination to go and start it. And in college in 2010, but while YouTube was just in its infancy stages and really kind of popping off, I was talking to my friends and I said, you know what? They know the story verbatim. I was like, we need to start a podcast. We're funny. We know fantasy. Like it would be funny stuff to watch it. And the stuff that we have on our group chat should be stuff that people see in the forefront. And fast forward 10 years, I'm talking to a couple buddies of mine and we're like, you know what? We're talking like investing. This is the time when like everything's popping off investing wise. Remember crypto was going off, and during this when everybody was, going through COVID stuff, there was a lot of stocks going well. So we're like, hey, let's find a way to just, make an extra $50 a month, $100 a month each. So we can just have that passively go into an investment account, right? Like just not even thinking about it. You don't have to go outside of anything else you're doing. Let's find a way to create that. Because one of my friends was kind of complaining that he didn't have any money. So we're like, let's start this fantasy page. So we did, call it the Fantasy Gods. And a lot of that stuff that you felt in the group chat, the talking smack and going back and forth, that's the kind of energy we put out into the content, and it was well received. Yeah. And then especially when, I kind of make some bold, or some people call it contrarian, some people call it bold, but I don't always go with the grain when it comes to fantasy. And when those takes hit, or maybe they're big misses, however you want to classify it, it does well when it comes to fantasy content. And a lot of my posts started to go viral. And that's when FanDuel reached out to me. So I worked with FanDuel for a year in the fantasy space, but started with Fantasy Gods, FanDuel, and then I had a couple companies that reached out to me and said, you know what? It's cool what you're doing with FanDuel. It's cool what you're doing with Fantasy Gods, but how do we know you can do this on your own? How do we know you could do this on yourself? And at the time, I had like 100 Twitter followers. I had, less than 100 followers on my own personal page. So I was like, all right, bet. The competitor in me, we talked about that. I was like, all right, bet. Yeah. You don't think that I can drive this thing? You think it's all a fluke? I'll show you. And so over the next 2 years, I spent time building up TikTok page, YouTube page, Twitter somewhat, and it's just putting energy into creating daily and consistent content that people can rely on and know it's directly from me. So that's why Justin Henry Show was created. That's why you see a lot of the TikTok stuff from me. But I think where people, one of the things that inspired me to continue doing it is the fact that I see so many people benefiting from the information, not just winning their leagues, but like understanding the game of fantasy football, more by tuning in. So that's the part that gives me like the most joy in that too.
Yeah, no, it's been good to see. It's been fun to see. I saw your stuff kind of early on, and the rise it's so cool to see. Tell me about your time working with Sharp Football Analysis and Yahoo Fantasy Sports.
Yeah, it's good because both of these opportunities, you know, I'm the kind of person that I will go get something, but luckily for me, both of these opportunities were presented to me. And so for Sharp Football, what I do is create content for them, short form for the most part on a weekly basis. And the cool thing about working with a company like Sharp is, you know, I think a lot of people in this space think that you have to do a certain type of content or they see somebody else rise and they feel like that's the person that they have to emulate in order to land an opportunity. But the cool thing about working with Sharp Football is that, you know, they asked me initially, like, do you write articles? And I'm like, nah, that's not my thing. You know, I'm a video guy. I like to do short form content. They're like, okay, we see you, and that's what we want. We want you to be authentically you. And so for me, that was the perfect partnership. And being able to do weekly content for an organization, you know, Warren Sharp and the guys there, it's been a great opportunity for me this year just to get my more content, have more eyes on what I'm doing, and just to be able to be myself. You know, and that's one thing that I take pride in is you might see me with a hat on, you might see me chain or a black shirt on, but at the end of the day, I take pride in doing this thing the way that I want to do it. You know, and it's great to be you know, asked to do that by a company like Sharp Football for fantasy football. For Yahoo, I do that for fantasy basketball. And so working with Dan Titus, the guys at Yahoo, it's been fun. I've been on their fantasy football podcast too. So it's been a lot of fun, man, and kind of unexpected this season. I wasn't expecting to go in working with a lot of partners. Just I was doing my own thing at the time, but it's been a great experience, and getting linked up with some notoriable companies, man, it's been a blessing for me, to say the least.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's been fun to see you from Fantasy Gods and blowing up viral, and I I love the content, and then to see these opportunities come present to you, it's been awesome to see. So what are your long term goals in this fantasy sports and betting industry?
You know, I want to be the best analyst I can be. And I think that's, you know, I'm in a competition with myself right now to continue to provide more consistent content, continue to provide better content overall, like up my game. That's really all I'm worried about, you know. And in this space, if that's building my own brand, if that's working with more companies, I just want to be a voice because I think that I have value in this industry. And so I think working with some good people and continuing to build my brand and continuing to build my voice in this space and just helping out whoever needs it at the end of the day, you know, for as long as that happens, that's my goal. And I don't really have a true standout goal in this industry to like work with a specific company or anything like that. My goal is to continue to build my brand and just become one of the best voices, if not the best voice in this space, in my opinion, you know what I mean? And so
Yeah.
contributing what I can and being the best that I can on a daily basis is really, really my biggest focus.
So what do you enjoy most about creating content?
So this is a really good question, Kev, man. And I think what I enjoy the most is like just hearing like the start to finish of a lot of people in fantasy football. And there'll be people that say, you know what, this is my first year in the league and I learned so much. I didn't win, but I'm glad to be back and want to play next year, you know, or it'll be somebody who said, you know what, I'm 1-6. And thank you, Justin. Like, you know, you helped me reach the fantasy playoffs. And one of the things I'll say is, you know what, even if you listen to me, you have to take accountability for your results. If you did this, you had to make trades, pick up, set your roster every week. I didn't do that all for you. So part of the joy in this is like knowing that everybody that follows me or people that do rock with my content become better fantasy players. They like the game, they enjoy it, and they learn. Like, I think there's so many people that take losses in a really bad way. They'll say, you know what, I suck, or maybe fantasy football is all luck, or it's not for me. I like when people are able to say, you know what, I got better. Let's go get the championship next year. Like, that's the mentality that I like to have. So the part that I enjoy the most is when I can see a 180 from like the time I start making content, when everybody's like, you don't know what you're talking about. You don't know what you're talking about, to like the end of the season when it's like, you know what, hey, we grew, we're here. We're going to get the championship this year or next year, like whatever their final statement is for me at the time. So that's what I think I enjoy the most, kind of building a community of people that understand and love the fantasy football game the same way I do.
Nice. Hey, let's dive into some rapid fire questions. I'll just throw out a question. You let me know your answers. What are your favorite hobbies, activities outside of fantasy sports?
Oh, it's kids, man. I got 3 boys. I have 3 sons, so just spending time with them. My oldest is a dog at basketball, so like watching
Nice.
his games. And then my middle and my youngest are just starting up hoop. So spending whatever time I can with my kids and my family, man. Priority number one. Only thing I like doing outside of fantasy, actually.
Nice. Are they going to get your height?
I hope so. My oldest,
Yeah.
it looks like he's 13 years old. He just hit 5'10" the other day. So
Nice.
he's probably got a 6'4", 6'5", 6'6" type future in his world. If he does, you watch out. He's gonna be special.
Oh, I love it. What's the last TV show that you binged?
Last TV show I binge watched was Squid Games. I'm actually, Kevin, I'm not actually a big TV guy, just so you know. But Squid Games, I'll watch that, before I go to bed. That was the last one that I've actually binge watched. It was kind of fun, man.
I like it. Do you have an all-time favorite movie?
Yes, I do. It's Money Talks. It's a comedy. It's got Chris Tucker in it and Charlie Sheen. It's not the best, not the best produced comedy, but it's my favorite of all time.
I love it. Do you have an all-time favorite sports movie?
I would say all-time favorite sports movie, Any Given Sunday. Any Given Sunday. Al Pacino,
Yeah.
Jamie Foxx. That's up there when it comes to movies.
Nice. What's the worst loss that you've experienced as a sports fan?
I'll give you two. The first loss was the Celtics-Lakers finals in 2008. That was a bad loss for me. I took that one on the chin. That one hurt. And then the other one that was even more, actually, I'll give you three, just rapid fire. In the Super Bowl 2013 against the Ravens, overthrow Kaepernick, Crabtree. I might have shed a tear in that one. That was a passionate loss. And then Kyle Williams, all I need to say, Kyle Williams, 2012 New York Giants. Kyle Williams, if I seen Kyle Williams, it's all love Kyle Williams. But as a fan, Kyle Williams, I got some words for you, my man.
I love it. What's your all-time favorite sports moment as a fan?
All-time favorite sports moment, I would say for the Niners, it was Alex Smith throwing to Vernon Davis, the catch two against the Saints. That was a back and forth game. Jimmy Graham had just scored a touchdown. He thought he won the game, was flexing in the end zone. Getting that one was sweet. And then I think the game 6, going to school, game 6, 2001 Kings Lakers, after Robert Horry hit that 3, was probably one of my favorite moments all time. Donning my Kobe Bryant jersey at the time. And I did not get a lot of love that day. I actually had some things thrown at me at school. So that was another fun moment there. But yeah, Kings Lakers in 2001. And then, like I said, Alex Smith, man, that was a very, very fun win against the Saints in the playoffs.
It's funny how sports are, though, because I'm a Seattle guy, so I think about Sherman and Crabtree. I mean, that was one of my favorites. So that was probably one of your least.
How dare you? How dare you bring that up? How dare you bring that up? That's a game we should have won too, by the way.
Man,
some questionable calls in that game, my man.
Let's we'll divert from the from rapid fire for a second, and let's talk a little about the Seahawks-Niners rivalry.
Okay.
So you guys are doing good right now, right? It's pretty special. But obviously, I guess one of my favorite things with that Seahawks LOB era, you guys were so scary, right? With Patrick Willis and Bowman. I mean, that was and Gore. I mean, that was a tough team.
Yeah,
those are definitely some of my favorite just matchups. That that period of time, that rivalry during that time was as good as it gets in sports for me. Yeah. And I would imagine, UK probably on the other side of that, right? Because it didn't end well. But hey, again, things are going good now, right?
Kevin's like, let me take time to acknowledge how my Seahawks dominated your Niners.
It was fun, but it's not feeling good right now.
It was not, it was not a fun time for me, man. And as a fan, that was, those are those teams you face and you're like, you know what, they kind of got our number no matter what. And then going into Seattle too with those games, it was always so tough to go play in that building. Alex Smith actually played really well against you guys a lot of times, but it would always be that defense. Richard Sherman talked a lot at the time too, man. And I hated the whole team. Carroll, Wilson, Marshawn Lynch was a dog, and I still didn't like Marshawn Lynch. I hated the whole team, man. Doug Ball, I can't look at any of them guys, man.
It was pretty wild. So, but now the weird thing is right now, you guys, your personalities are amazing. I can't, I love Debo won me a championship a couple years ago. The way he plays is just phenomenal. Like, how could you not love the way he plays football? George
Yeah.
Kittle is like the greatest personality ever, right? CMC is what he is. Like, it's painful as a Seahawks fan to I can't stand what DK's doing. I don't like Jamal Adams very much at all. Like, I hate the feeling that I have right now. So I guess I'm using you for some counseling. Like,
Well, I'll say
it's gonna
this,
get better.
I'll say this. I like the ground game for Seattle right now. Kenneth Walker, Zach Charbonnet,
Yeah.
his team is getting better defensively in that secondary too. And I know Jamal Adams, he goes in there and talks a big mess, and not a lot of people like him. But you draft a guy like Devin Witherspoon, you get, you got some pieces there on that defense already that are just elite type plays. And it's like, the rivalry is there. It's just Seattle's a step away, and it kind of feels like I wish Geno was like slightly better, because I feel like, and this is no knock on Geno, it's just if he was like a little bit better, or maybe there was just a little bit more consistency with this team, Seattle would be a problem, because the defense got right into like a year or two, because this was a terrible defense, even just last year, a terrible defense, and it's got right here very quickly. So I think it could be a rivalry, but I mean, it ain't gonna be. It's only a rivalry when both teams can win.
Yeah, and again, the way the Niners are playing right now, it's got to be sweet for you. One more question here, or a couple more questions. GOAT and NBA, like, you're a Jordan guy, but where are you at on the Kobe, or not the Kobe? I mean, Kobe's amazing.
Are we going there?
But LeBron and Jordan.
We going? It's LeBron. LeBron is the GOAT.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, LeBron is the GOAT. And I think there's nothing you could put in front of me that would tell me that anybody else, longevity-wise, what he's been able to do on the floor, not just as a scorer, but just as a pure basketball player, the IQ, just owning an entire decade, playing an entire decade in the finals, like scoring leader. There's really nothing you can say to me that says anybody other than LeBron James is the best basketball player to ever play. But to me, it's with an asterisk, right? And I do 1A, 1B, 1C. And this is my personal three. I think these are the three that have to be in everybody's top five. Bron, Kobe, then Jordan. That's how I got it. And as a Laker fan, that's why I got Kobe. I got Kobe, man. And a lot of people underrate what Kobe did. 81, going to 7 finals, winning like there's a lot with Kobe we could talk about too. But that's my order. It goes LeBron, then Kobe, then Jordan, my 1A, 1B, 1C. And then it comes to football, Jerry's the GOAT.
Okay.
Over Brady.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, the most dominant football player ever.
Yeah.
I would agree with you on that. Okay. I respect your basketball IQ. I'm a Jordan guy, but but I mean, your point on Kobe, like, to do that with such a similarity in style to Jordan, in his shadow, like, amazing what he did for sure.
Well, and you're also talking about, this is a zone defense era. The teams can play zone now. Jordan even said himself, if it came to the zone, it might be a little bit different. So I think with the fact that Kobe had to figure out zone defense in an era where defense was elite in the mid 2000s. These games were like 60 to 65. Like, there wasn't as many points available as there is in today's game, or even in the 90s. So I think what Kobe was doing in that era, especially before this like 3-point era, this Mike D'Antoni 7 seconds or less era, like, I think what Kobe did at that time was special. And we were watching, whatever streak, I can't remember the number of games it was that he had 40 in a row. Like, he was a different animal.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's good. How about one more thing on that? Could you say that Jordan peak Jordan was the greatest at a peak point than any player, or do you still say it's LeBron just because of everything?
Yeah, I give peak to Jordan, right? When you talk about what he's able to do over the 90s, yeah, like the peak is Jordan, and winner. Like, obviously, he went to 6 finals, he won 6. He won Defensive Player of the Year, like MVP, same season, Olympics. Like, he was just a winner and a competitor. So I think what he was able to do, winning wise and peak wise, the scoring, like, nobody could touch Jordan. The shoot, like, culture, everything. Like, Jordan was him during that time. But like, when I start to look at what LeBron's done, that's why I got LeBron over him. And it's an endless debate. We're always going to debate that because it's a preference at the end of the day.
I think it's fun. So hopefully the viewers enjoy
it. Some people they tooth and nail.
For sure. Okay, switching back to football, fantasy playoffs. We're here.
Yes.
Name a quarterback, a running back, a wide receiver, and a tight end that you think are going to be most commonly found on championship playoff rosters in fantasy?
I think when we go to like quarterback, it's easy to kind of like write off a lot of names that weren't good early in the year. But one quarterback that I kind of think is going to be on fantasy championship teams is Justin Fields. And this is a guy that, like, if you were in the fantasy playoffs, you did a lot of this without Justin Fields performing. You are already, like, your team was already good without Justin Fields. Adding the fact now that there's probably going to be some weather games. I think they got 2 games in Chicago, 1 game in Cleveland. We know what happens when the weather gets a little iffy. He takes off on his legs, and we start to see some of these 30-point performances out of Justin Fields. So I can see it. Quarterback, Justin Fields. I think Bijan Robinson is starting to come into his own here, has a very favorable fantasy playoff schedule. I want to say Carolina in week 17 for this Atlanta team. So a very favorable fantasy playoff schedule for Bijan Robinson, who is starting to earn more work, starting to earn more red zone looks. When it comes to receiver, I would love to say DK Metcalf for your Seahawks, but because I know you're a Seahawks fan, now I'm going to skip that, and I'm going to go somewhere else. I'm going to go CeeDee Lamb. And the way that he's playing right now, him and Dak, they got some shootouts on deck here on their schedule too. So I think CeeDee Lamb is going to be part of some championship teams. And then at tight end, this is a player I called out mid-season, actually in off-season last year. I called this player out. I said I thought he would be a tight end 1 if he ever got the opportunity to start. And he did get the opportunity to start in his second year. And a lot of people at the exact same time were saying Dalton Kincaid is the best pickup tight end wise. And I said, you know what? I'm really excited about Trey McBride. I'm really excited about him. And I think he's going to be a league winner too. I think he's going to be on a lot of championship teams because of it. He has a Kelsey-like floor, believe it or not. I really like Trey McBride's production. So give me Trey McBride as like the league winner at tight end.
There you go. So if you got Justin Fields, Bijan Robinson, CeeDee Lamb, and Trey McBride, order those championship trophies.
I don't have a lot of teams with all 3. Trey McBride's the only one. Trey McBride I got a lot of, but not Fields, Bijan, or CeeDee Lamb. I
can see that lineup being constructed, though. I mean, I can see, someone took Bijan, they took CeeDee in the second, maybe, and that roster exists out there. So we'll see how it goes.
If it's right, I'm coming back to that comment. You got to clip it up and
I will
post this video if it's right.
For sure. Now, obviously, your journey in the fantasy sports industry, it's been fun. Like, can you name some of the people that have just had the biggest impact on you during your journey?
Yes, I would say obviously my guys over at FanDuel, Abe over at FanDuel, bringing me on, giving me a chance. He was definitely like one of the reasons I even got some notoriety in this industry, like being able to say that I worked with FanDuel. He took a chance on me, didn't have to. So I'm thankful for him. My guys over at the Fantasy Gods, Dan, P, and Isaiah, those are my boys. They are, some of the best guys to be around friend-wise too, like keeping me going even when I didn't want to post, and so I would say them as well. As far as like people in the industry, some friends that I made, the boys, Kev, my man Kev, good people. Coach Bruce is another name that kind of put me on here in this industry. Steph Smalls, rocked the turf for a little bit. There's, Lawrence Jackson, Dan Titus. I got a lot of names, man. Dan Titus is my guy, man. Lawrence, Corey Parsons, the fantasy executive. There's some notable names in this space that have really like gone beyond, above and beyond to help like see me grow as a fantasy analyst and get involved in this space and network. So big ups to those guys. And I know I'm probably forgetting a few, and if I am, sorry, but those are some people that I just wanted to show a little love to. I can't go without mentioning Chris Allen. Shout out to Chris Allen.
I love it. Yeah, no, outstanding list for sure. What are you most grateful for at this time?
Most grateful just for being here, being able to do what I love on a daily basis, whether it's talking, I have my marketing company, I get to spend time with my family, and best of all, I get to talk fantasy sports. Like, this is a dream, whether it's for one person, 5 people, if it's for 100 people, 1,000 people, it doesn't matter. Like, being able to have a platform to do this. I don't think a lot of people want to get the full-time job. Like, that's what they see as the win. I got the full-time job, or like I was able to get X amount of views on Twitter or on social media, whatever it is. But I think having the impact of like, either somebody's consuming my content and they're benefiting from it in some form or fashion, or maybe they see my content and they're inspired to go make content to help other people. Like, I think that's what I find most value in, and just being able to have a platform to do that, to talk to people about something I've been doing my whole life and had an interest in doing. And this is the kind of stuff I'd be doing in my spare time anyway. Like like an addict. You know what I'm saying? Going over fantasy numbers and checking starts and sits and inactives, actives. Like this is something I was doing for the last 20, 25 years. So to be able to do that on a more consistent basis and actually have an audience that is listening to what I say and wants to hear what I have to say, it's a blessing every day, man.
That's awesome. So what advice do you have for people that are aspiring to get more involved in the industry?
People that want to get involved in the industry, just start. And I think there's a barrier to entry in people's minds. They think that they need to have some type of pedigree. But if you really believe in what you're doing and you really think you have a gift and you want to share that, or you think you can help out certain people, like just start. And at the end of the day, you can always make your content better. You can always improve on what you're doing. You can go away for a while and come back. People won't know the difference. But I think in order to give yourself a chance, you got to be in the game. And a lot of people are scared to take that first step because they don't think they're good enough, or they don't think they have quality content, or they don't have enough people that they know. And I would say to that person, like, just trust that things will happen the way they're supposed to, and don't give up on yourself too early. Like there's a lot of room for people in this industry. There's a lot of need for people in this industry. And as long as you're true to yourself and you're able to deliver content on a consistent basis that is fun for you and something you can continue to do, what's the reason you're holding yourself back? So just get started, man.
I love it. Great advice for sure. Now, Justin, is there anything we haven't covered that you want to share before we close things out?
No, I would say this, man. Over the fantasy playoffs, it's here, right? Fantasy playoffs is here. And I think one thing a lot of people do is they feel like if they don't win their league, that it's a failure of a season. Or if they didn't, they had the team with the most points, they're ready to throw an excuse out. Oh, I had the most points. It's like, at the end of the day, you're playing in a league with 12 other people who are competing against you, or 11 other people in a 12-team league, right? Or maybe you're playing against 7 other people. Everybody wants to win. It's the fantasy playoffs. There's going to be a winner. There's going to be a loser. It's just like a poker tournament. Just like if you're playing Monopoly, at some point, there's got to be a winner. So don't be so hard on yourself over these next couple of weeks. Remember, it's a game. Remember, you don't have a lot of control over the outcome. All you can do is put yourself in the right position and then let the games play out. Football teams hardly know how games are going to end up sometimes. We didn't, on Monday night, the Titans just beat the Dolphins when they were up by 2 scores with 3 minutes left. Things happen in fantasy. Things happen in real football. So it's fantasy playoffs, but it's not life or death. Just remember that when you're playing. It's a game.
That's great. Enjoy the experience.
Enjoy
the league and all the fun craziness that happens, right?
Yes, and get the trophy. Get the trophy.
Get that trophy. Tell listeners and viewers where they can find you.
Right now, I just dropped a playoff pack. So I went over every single game for the fantasy playoffs, talked to every single player, where I thought they would rank, matchups to avoid, potential busts, studs for the fantasy playoffs, and players that I think can break out. So head over to the YouTube page, Justin Henry Show. It's a 4-part series because otherwise it would have been a 3-hour episode. It's a 4-part series. Go ahead and watch it. I broke it down team by team. It's on the Justin Henry Show on YouTube. And then if you want to check out some short form content, head over to the YouTube page, Justin Henry with a 3 instead of an E, or you can find me on Sharp Football Analysis or Yahoo.
There we go. Make sure to follow Justin. He's outstanding in so many different ways. So thank you so much for joining me on this episode. It was an absolute pleasure, and I can't wait to see what's next for you, my friend.
Appreciate the time, Kevin. Thank you for having me on.
Right on.
Thank you for listening to the Fantasy Football Unlimited podcast. Until next time, be sure to follow and subscribe to all of FFU's social media accounts for daily content.